Hey everybody, welcome back to In Bed with a Millennial. I'm the Millennial Javeda Bay, and this is my bed. And we are continuing our month-long conversation around STIs to destigmatize and push back on all the shame around them. So let's get into it. Today I want to talk about how to have a conversation about STIs with a partner, with friends, whoever, but how we can talk about it to make it less of a shameful, stigma-filled thing and more of a common, normal, natural, proactive conversation that we should all be engaging in. So, let's do it. Firstly, what should talking about STIs look like, especially in terms of relationships or you're engaging in sexual activity? Well, first things first, they should talk about when was the last time you were tested. The conversation really is it's an ongoing conversation. Let's start there. But every time you're engaging with a new partner or anything of that nature, the conversation should include when the last time you were tested was. And if you watch the first video this month, then you know how often you should be getting tested depending on what type of relationship you were in and things of that nature. So that's pretty easy. You're like, oh yeah, no, I was tested 3 months ago when I was still seeing this person, but I'm no longer seeing them, blah, 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 whatever the reason may be. But you tell them when the last time you were tested. The conversation should also include the results of that last test, which can seem a little intimidating, especially if you are not already in the habit or in the style of regularly sharing STI testing results. It can seem a little daunting, but do not fear. Because the more we do it, the more commonplace it'll be, and then it won't be this daunting task. So, sharing results when you do it. And depending on your partner, they may want it in a variety of different ways. Some people are totally cool with you just verbally telling them, yeah, no, everything came back. I was negative on everything. Yeah, so how do we want to engage with each other? Some people would like to actually see it in writing. They would like to see the printout or the email from your doctor that actually says negative, blah, 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 whatever it may say. They would like to see it for themselves. This depends on partners. Some people just naturally trust people at their word. Some people are I've been burned a few times by others. I would much rather see it for myself. That is up to you. That's up to y'all's relationship. I'm not going to dictate how that should go, but those are just two different ways that people could ask to see results. Depending on the realms of the community you're in, if you are involved in kink and group play and things of that nature, those types of events and environments will typically want to actually see printouts or emails from the doctors to show negative results and things of that nature. But yeah, so people can want to see them in a different variety of ways. It is important to note that if people do ask to see it from the email from the doctor or the printout of your results, it's not to say that they don't trust you. It's just to say that maybe that'll give them more peace of mind and comfort. So don't take it too personally or too harsh if someone's like, oh, cool, I'm glad that you told me that, but I would love to see the results myself. Also because they probably are someone that will share their results with you rather than just giving you the verbal confirmation. So yeah, don't take it to heart. The conversation should also include a plan for testing before you all engage. If this is a new partner, definitely being hey, so I know I was tested 3 months ago, but before we actually engage in anything, would you be interested in us going and getting tested together? Yeah. Make it a date. Make it a full fun day together where you're cool. So we know that we're going to get our blood drawn. So we should probably eat something beforehand. So how about we do lunch and then we go and I can make the appointments at our local urgent care, or I can actually schedule us appointments at an LGBTQ center, whatever, wherever you want to do it. And then afterwards we can go to a movie or go get ice cream, whatever you want to do. Make a full day of it. It doesn't have to be this I guess I'll just do it by myself type thing. You can do it together. I encourage it. It makes it less especially if you're someone that doesn't like needles or doesn't like getting their blood drawn, bringing somebody with you and y'all doing it together can make it a lot less intimidating and stressful and scary. So now that you've had that conversation, you've either shared your results, you got tested together, whatever that looked like, now what's the conversation going to look like? probably how you all want to engage. Are y'all going to use barrier methods? Is birth control and contraception going to be a part of your activity? Or are y'all like, hey, let's just commit to being fluid bonded, and like, we're not using barrier methods, we are fulfilling that breeding kink, we're doing the dang thing, however it may be. But that should be the follow-up after you've actually had this conversation and done your testing and shared your results. You should talk about that. So this is what the conversation can and should include. How do you actually start the conversation? Well, as I always say, social media is your friend. If you are really unsure about where to start by sending them posts. It's April. It is STI Awareness Month. I promise you that there are a vast amount of educators and brands and profiles talking about STIs this month. So use that content, share it to start the conversation in a way that isn't you just straight up having to be like, when were you last tested? Let's get tested together. If that's not how you want to do it, you don't have to. Use social media. Again, starting the conversation not in person. If you are someone who is like very apprehensive to conflict or potential conflict, actively like starting the conversation over text, being like, hey, so I loved our last date, and I know we talked about us getting hot and heavy sometime in the near future. I was wondering if we could talk about STIs and STI testing with each other. Would you rather do it in person? We can continue the conversation over text. We can hop on the phone together. What would you like to do? But I would like to have this conversation before we jump into the sack together, you know? So starting it over text, or if you or someone that's like, no, I know that I would much rather have this conversation in person, do it in person. Hang out with them and be like, hey, so I know that things are like really like heating up between us, and we've like mentioned like getting involved sexually with each other, and I just want to make sure that we have a conversation around STIs before we actually engage sexually. So yeah. When's the last time you were tested? Here's when I was last tested. Have that conversation. However works for you, but just know that like it's important to have the conversation. So what are some things to remember around STIs and around this conversation in general? 1, STIs are common. They are extremely common in our world. More common than mainstream media will give you credit to, but extremely common. So however you may contract an STI, know that you are not alone. I promise you, at least one other person in your circle has either had an STI before or lives with an STI, things of that nature. So like, don't fret, they're extremely common. 2, the shame and stigma surrounding STIs is so deeply ingrained in our society, and it's going to be a process for all of us to unlearn that stigma and that's just a truth of the matter. Like, it's gonna take time. Nobody's perfect, but as long as we are actively making the choice to unlearn the shame and stigma and we're not further perpetuating it, that's what matters. What does that perpetuation look like? Using things like clean to describe not having positive STI results. That's stigma inducing. That's shame inducing. We don't use that. We just say, oh yeah, no, I got back a negative STI test panel. Or yeah, no, I have positive STI results for chlamydia or gonorrhea. But definitely making sure that we are actively trying our best to not perpetuate stigma and shame further. How can you also do this? Being upfront and honest about it. Like, hey, guess what? Did y'all know that I actually have HSV? I have herpes. Yes, I do. Being open and honest, because there's nothing wrong. Like, there's no shame or fault in it. It happens. It just is a part of life. Just like you could potentially, I don't have a really good analogy right now, but like, it's a part of it. So just being upfront and honest about it is a great way to push back against the shame and stigma. 3, all STIs are either curable or manageable. Curable meaning that you can take antibiotics and it will nip it in the bud. This is especially true for common ones like chlamydia and gonorrhea. A week of antibiotics and it is typically should be cleared up. And manageable in the sense that you can be put on medicine to manage an STI so that it doesn't so that it's not transmitted further, or so that you're not enduring pain or potentially at risk for further health complications. So things like herpes, there are antibiotics that you can take to prevent an outbreak from happening. and also to minimize the effects of an outbreak if you were to experience one, and to make it so it doesn't last forever. It can cut down how long it lasts. So for HIV, you have PrEP and PEP, which are different medications that can be used pre-exposure to HIV or post-exposure to HIV. You also have HIV medicine that can help it so that way HIV is no longer transmissible because it is not showing up within an STI panel, which means that you cannot transmit it if you can't test to see it. So curable and manageable. So really there is like, all of the stress and stigma makes no sense, seeing as how you have medicine for colds, and no one's like, oh my gosh, you have a cold. You got the flu, you could take medicine for it. Like, all of these different things have medicine. Same goes with STI. Number 4, I know we talked about how like we should actively be working to like unlearn this shame and stigma that society has taught us all. But there are some folks who don't want to do that. They don't do it. They actively want to perpetuate this stuff. And if someone were to have a negative reaction to you bringing up an STI conversation, disclosing an STI status to them, or anything of that nature, yeah, kick them to the curb. If someone is not actively trying to do better, trying to learn and like not reinforce the negativity, you don't want to be around them. You don't. So just like throw up the deuces and peace out from them. Okay? Okay. And then the last thing I want to say is that disclosing can be intimidating. A lot of us are not taught how to do this growing up when we start engaging in sexual activity or anything of that nature. So it can seem very intimidating and daunting, especially when you get later in life and you've never had to have this conversation. You're like, I don't know how to do this now. Super duper understandable. No, you're not alone. Know that there are plenty of resources available if you want them on how to better have these conversations. I am always here to help. I'm always here to point you in the right direction to somebody else that can potentially help if I'm not doing what you need me to do for you, and all of that. So just know, it's okay if you're intimidated by this conversation. I promise you, I used to be intimidated by this conversation. It took a lot to get to a point where I'm like, I can have this conversation, piece of cake, no problem. So yeah, don't stress too much. And know you're not alone, and know that I am here rooting for you, supporting you, and offering as many resources as I possibly can. But yeah, for now, that is it. Please make sure that you have subscribed to my YouTube channel, you're following me on Instagram and TikTok, and that you are subscribed to my website newsletter, because duh, why would you not want to be, especially because next month is Masturbation May, and you know I got the goods. So yeah. Until next time, I'm gonna see y'all later. Deuces.